I think a lot of people think about spontaneous conversation and this as the gift of gab, as something that you're just born with.
Right.
But you sort of say that's not really right. Can you just talk about this sort of fallacy that you just are born this way?
Well, first, it's awesome to be with all of you. I've never been on this level of this hotel. I always eat at that restaurant, but I've never been here. So this is so exciting. And thank you for having me. Many of us, if you think about it, most of our conversation is not planned. We don't have the deck. We don't have the pitch practiced. It happens in the moment. You have had several spontaneous conversations since you walked in this room. This squeaking bothers me. Can you all hear me? I'm loud. I grew up in a family where the only way to be heard was to speak louder and longer than everybody else. So if you can't hear me, let me know. You can hear me back there? Yep. Excellent, excellent. Very good. You're recording.
Sorry.
You're recording. All right.
Sorry.
You'll have to hear the squeaks. Most of our communication is spontaneous. And many of us feel, as you point out, that we are not born with that. Like we either have it or we don't. And that is complete falsehood. You can learn to become better at it. Like any skill, it takes practice. The counterintuitive notion is that we can prepare to be spontaneous. If any of you have ever played a sport, you know that's true. You do drills, you practice, and then you go out and have the spontaneous event that unfolds in the game. So we can definitely prepare to be spontaneous. Now, some of us, by virtue of our personality and experience, have learned to do this a little more easily than others. I like to say, my last name is Abrahams, A-B. I was always called on first in school. I always knew who was going first. It was me. Until I started teaching at the business school, there's never been somebody who comes before me. We have Jennifer Acker, AA. It is the first time I've never been first. But the point is, through that training, I got a little more comfortable. But all of us can learn to communicate in the moment.
Did you just apply one of your spontaneous formulas?
Maybe.
Let's see, which one? Perhaps now what, and so what? Was that it that you just used? Break that down for us, please.
Right. So one of the things that helps us in any communication is to be structured. Many of us, when we communicate, especially when we're nervous, we simply itemize and list information. We take our audiences on a journey of our discovery of what we're trying to say as we're saying it. In other words, we ramble. That's not good for the audience, and it's not good for you. One of the keys to success in all communication, but especially spontaneous speaking, is to leverage structure. Structure is nothing more than a logical connection of ideas. One of my favorite structures, the one I used then and I'm using currently, is called what, so what, now what. 3 simple questions. Just answer those questions, and you logically connect ideas together. The what is the information you're saying. The so what is why it's important to your audience, and the now what is what comes next. So let's imagine you're in a meeting and you walk out and your colleague says, how did that go? Well, you don't have the deck prepared. You hadn't rehearsed this. It's in the moment. What do? You answer what, so what, now what. You say, I thought that meeting went really well, except when you talked about the implementation plan. You spoke quickly and you didn't give as much detail as you did elsewhere. That's the what. When you speak quickly without a lot of detail, people think you're not prepared or you're nervous. That's the so what. Next time, slow down and add these 2 additional bits of information. That's the now what. By following that recipe, you are able to communicate well. I'm a lousy cook, but I'm a much better cook when I follow a recipe. So by using structure, it helps you solve one of the big problems of speaking, and writing, by the way, is having a clear structure. So yes, I use what, so what, now what all the time.
It is, I think you call it the Swiss Army knife.
I call it a Swiss Army knife because you can use it in so many situations.
And if you have ever talked to anybody who's really good at reporting as a journalist, they will also talk about preparing to be spontaneous. It is, you can't be a journalist without that mindset. One of the other things that comes up in your book a lot is improv. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we did on the podcast, and you'll get a longer version, was the gift-giving game.
Yes.
So we're going to do that now, but you're going to tell folks what the gift-giving game is, and I'll be your guinea pig.
Well, I think everybody should play it.
I agree. So you and I will show how to do it.
The doors are locked. No, you have a choice. You always have agency in anything I do. I believe improvisation is not only a great way to train yourself to be spontaneous, but for some people it can be really intimidating. So if you don't want to actually do improv, at least explore the ideas and maxims that come from improv. And if you know anything about improv, you are very familiar with the notion of yes and. We embrace what is presented to us. One of the barriers to effective spontaneous speaking is we put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves to do it right. We want to do our communication right. We want to be perfect in our communication. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves. I have the audacity to start my strategic communication class at the business school by telling my students that I want them to maximize their mediocrity. You have never seen just dumbfounded looks. These are Stanford MBAs, have never been told to be anything but the best they can be, and I'm saying be mediocre. And here's why. When you remove the pressure of doing it right, you actually free up cognitive resources. There's a neurocognitive explanation for this. You free up cognitive bandwidth to focus on doing it well. One of the ways we get ourselves to that point where we can just do our communication is to learn to say yes and in circumstances. And there's a wonderful game that comes from improvisation. It's called Give a Gift. The holidays are coming up. We need to practice this. So I'm going to ask all of you to have an imaginary gift in front of you. Can you all do this with me? Yes, I'm asking you to do this. That's right. Okay, an imaginary gift. On the count of 3, I want you to give it. Everybody just 1, 2, 3, you give. Ready? 1, 2, 3, give. Now receive a gift. 1, 2, 3. That's all you got to do. Okay? So you'll have a partner in a moment, and we'll demonstrate this. One of you is going to give a gift. You'll hand a gift. The other receives the gift. When you receive the gift, you will open up the box, look inside, and you will say the first thing that comes to mind and thank your partner for it. An act of spontaneity. Raise your hand if you already know what's in your box. Uh-huh, exactly. This is your brain trying to get it right. Matt just gave me a game to play. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get it right. I'm going to say there's a duck in my box, and that's funny, right? This is us getting in our own way. I literally want you to open the box and say the first thing that comes to mind. I'm only going to give you one constraint. Keep it clean, keep it legal. Otherwise, I don't care what you say. It doesn't even have to fit in the box. That's act 1 of spontaneity. Act 2 of spontaneity is the person who gave you the gift, upon hearing what they gave you, will immediately explain why they gave it to you. So watch how this game unfolds. Okay. Would you
before
like to
before you do it, I just thinking about maximizing my mediocrity. It feels like how you use generative AI to write content. I thought like you were talking about that, but it's okay. All right, I'm going to give you the gift.
Excellent, and then you're going to tell me why you gave it to me.
I am, yes.
Oh, you took the harder role.
I'm excited about that.
Okay,
but I was trying to be spontaneous. Okay.
I love it. All right. Thank you for the turtle.
You know, I was so excited to get you that gift because I felt like you were going a little slow, and I thought you could use the motivation of that a turtle represents. That's all.
Awesome. Big round of applause. Yeah.
My turn.
That's right. I was going to turn it over to you, but okay. Here we go. Here's your gift.
Oh my gosh, it's a bowl of spaghetti.
Well, you have been so busy running around doing all these things, and there's an amazing Italian restaurant right there, and I decided to bring you that bowl so you'd have energy to get through the afternoon.
You are a very thoughtful person.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play this game quickly, and then I want to debrief it really quickly. Okay? So find somebody sitting next to you. We don't have a lot of time, and this room is a little weird and cramped. Wait, you guys are all eager. I love it. As soon as you meet your partner, the first thing you're going to do, wait, give me a second. Tell your partner what time you woke up this morning. The person who woke up earliest gives the first gift.
Okay.
I learned a long time ago, if you don't say who goes first, the whole time is spent arguing over who goes first.
All
right, go for it.
Amazing.
It's okay to get them doing it.
Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. It was on the, yeah.
It'll go quick.
Yeah. No, I absolutely wanted to do this.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's one thing to learn it, it's another thing to do it.
Exactly.
This room is very loud.
It is.
It's weird.
It's a weird room, but
It's a neat hotel.
it's a nice it's a neat hotel, and it's very intimate, and that's the experience that I wanted to create.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, and the energy in this room has been terrific.
Please switch. If you have not switched, switch to the other person.
Time to switch.
Just look at the smiles.
I know.
I'll debrief it quickly,
Okay.
and then we'll move on.
Okay.
You can use me to get back on stage.
Okay, no problem.
All right, let's come back together. Let's come back together.
Hello.
Let's come on back.
Hello.
All right, come
Oh my-
on
it's
back.
a monster. It's a monster.
So you get a room of marketing professionals and you ask them to sit quiet for several hours and then give them an opportunity to talk and try to get them back together. Hard task. Thank you for doing that activity. Did you have a little bit of fun? Yes. Excellent. All right. I am going to slowly wave my hand across the room, and as my hand is in your general direction, I just want you to say out loud what you found in your box. I'm always fascinated to hear. So what was in box? Just start shouting them out. Keys. Tires, yeah. Ticket. iPhone. Puppy. I hope there were holes there. Excellent. People had cars, people had keys, puppies. This is actually a Rorschach test. Very interesting group. Here's why I use this activity. How did you feel at that moment as soon as your partner was about to say what you gave them? By the looks of your faces, it was anticipation. There were smiles. You were leaning in. When it comes to spontaneous speaking, though, we don't bring that same approach or attitude. If I said you have to give a big presentation and then there's going to be Q&A afterwards, you're not going, oh, great, I can't wait. You're going, oh, crap, this sucks. What if you saw those questions as a gift? What if when you walk into the elevator and your boss says, how do you think that meeting went? That was an opportunity. By reframing our spontaneous speaking as an opportunity, not a threat, as something we can lean into and say yes and to. All of you said yes and. Nobody said, I didn't give you a puppy, I gave you a cat. No, you explained why you did it, right? You embraced it. If we take that approach to our spontaneous speaking, it changes everything. We approach versus retreat. Our answers are longer, they're more collaborative, our tone is open. All of those are to your benefit. So I want you to remember this silly little activity and how you felt in that moment and try to bring that approach, that mindset, to spontaneous speaking. It will fundamentally change how you feel about it.
Wow, you just gave everybody a gift.
There you go. There you go.
It's true. I mean, the notion of engaging in a conversation with someone and they ask you a question, they are giving you a gift. It's just a wonderful perspective. Thank you for that. Okay, what's the F word of spontaneous speaking?
Not the naughty one. Several of you were thinking, you were hoping I was going to say that, huh? I'm going to drop an F-bomb. Fidelity. It's all about fidelity, accuracy, and clarity. Some of you in this room are of my vintage, and you remember hi-fi stereos, right?
Guilty.
The Fi was fidelity. It meant accuracy and clarity. Back in the day, it was the highest quality way of hearing music. Now we carry around in our pocket something that's much higher in fidelity. When you communicate, most of the time, the goal is fidelity. We want people to accurately understand what I'm saying so that I can get my point across. So we want to do things that minimize noise, which is the enemy, the nemesis of fidelity, and we want to do things that increase fidelity in terms of how we say it, the words we choose, the place we do, the channel we use, all of the stuff that you know well, that you tactically do every day. Those are the skills that help with fidelity.
So, fidelity, we're going to listen. It seems like everything starts with listening really, really well,
Yes.
because what we know in our day-to-day communications is that most people are so busy forming their sentences that they're not hearing. They're forming their next thought, so they're not hearing. So if we're talking about this in spontaneous conversation, how do you keep listening while you're doing, and you know, I think your tools help with this, but talk a little bit of how do I keep listening while I'm busy formulating my own thought?
Well, I'm first very happy my wife is not here, because every time I talk about listening, she says you're a fraud. Okay, so I am a work in progress, and I have somebody in my life who reminds me of that a lot. We are not good listeners. We listen just enough to get the gist of what we're hearing. And we are speaking into a very loud environment. Lots of things that distract us. I believe the most precious commodity we have in the world today is attention. Getting attention is hard. What's more difficult than getting attention is engagement. To me, engagement is sustained attention. When we are in the midst of an interaction, a communication, we need to be listening for the bottom line, not the top line. Most of us just get the gist of what somebody says and we begin rehearsing, practicing, and getting into our own head. You need to listen deeply for what's the bottom line. And then paraphrase what you've said. Paraphrasing, if what's the what now, what is the Swiss Army knife? Paraphrasing is the cousin to it. It is so useful. When I paraphrase, I do so many things. One, I tell you I heard you, and that I'm trying to make sure I understood. Second, I give you an opportunity to correct me. Third, we build trust and connection. A colleague of mine, Allison Woods Brooks, she's an amazing person. She teaches at the Stanford of the East, and she has done a lot of, that'll settle in, you'll get it, you'll get it. All right, it's there. She has found that when you actually verbalize a paraphrase, you connect and build trust much more quickly than active listening. We've all been told active, nod your head, go, right? That's all good, that's important, but paraphrasing is what really does it. So when you listen to paraphrase. That might mean you have to take a beat before you respond. One of the fallacies of spontaneous speaking is that we have to respond right away. It's okay to say, give me a moment, or to ask a clarifying question, or a paraphrase, which is a lower order cognitive skill. That means it's a fancy way of saying you can think and do it at the same time. So when I'm actually paraphrasing, I'm beginning to formulate my response. So to listen better, listen for the bottom line. I'm going to give you all a challenge. I'm going to give you homework. That's part of what I get paid to do. During lunch, when you have a conversation with somebody, at one moment in that conversation, paraphrase something they have said. See how it feels to listen that way, and see if the other person responds in a different way. It feels really good when somebody paraphrases what you've said. See how that goes. If nothing else, you can move on to the next topic.
Oh, so first I have to say that your wife and my wife are obviously in the same boat, because nobody
right.
keeps me more humble, and rightfully so. But what I think you're saying is that we need to paraphrase, and that is going to buy you time to think through what you just heard.
See what's happening here? Now, a paraphrase, now that was an excellent, grand paraphrase. Not every paraphrase has to be that way. You can just highlight an idea or word. So if we're in the midst of a conversation about an implementation, I can simply say cost, because that's what you were talking about, and then move on. So a paraphrase doesn't have to be, so what I heard you saying is, and go through all of that, although that's okay. Nor is a paraphrase what a 5-year-old does, which is just parrot back word for word what you've said. That's annoying. So there are lots of ways to paraphrase, but take the time to listen so you can do that well.
I think I get to 7-year-old with mine.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
But you know, maybe generously speaking. Thank you for that. So I'm thinking about these folks, and there is something that some people do, which I find extremely annoying, which is they finish your sentence with you. That's not the same as paraphrasing, is it?
No, that's just plain annoying.
Okay, fine. Thank you for that. Okay. I thought one thing that a lot of leaders in this room have to do is make toasts. And you talk about toasts as another way of spontaneous speaking. And so I'm wondering if you could, we have a bunch of marketers here who in many cases had a very tough year. It was very, very demanding, hard to get new clients, hard to close business. If you could offer a toast for them for 2025, that would be fabulous.
I'm being put on the spot. You see this? So I have a structure I like to use for toasts. It's what? W-H-A-T. Start with why are we here? Now, if I'm at a wedding, I don't have to explain why we're here, right? But if I'm at a company all hands and the big boss has asked me to give a tribute or a toast to something, I might say, hey, what we're celebrating at this moment is the completion of this project. So I actually have to give the why are we here? And then the H is how are you connected? Again, if you're the big boss giving a tribute to your team, you don't have to say, hey, I'm the big boss. But if you're at a wedding, you might want to say, I've known the bride for 20 years. That's why I'm here. That's how I'm connected. The A is for an anecdote. You want to give a clear, concise, relevant anecdote. that's approachable and understandable by everybody. Some people just give a story that only one person gets. It needs to be applicable. And then finally, the T is the toast or the thanks, the gratitude that you state at the end. So I am thrilled to be here at this Huddles event. I think it is awesome to be around people who do what I teach. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time and have spent a lot of time thinking about the issues and challenges all of you do, and I'm really appreciative to be here. As we reflect on the last year, even the last few days, it is clear that things are changing, and they're changing very rapidly. I think about the podcast I host. That podcast has evolved incredibly. In the last 2 months, we actually took it out from the ownership of the business school. I am now a social media entrepreneur. I don't know how the hell that happened. But all of you are in positions of entrepreneurship yourself, within your organizations, within the initiatives that you are running. And you have to work as a team and really define your own strategy. And to that, I want us all to take a moment to not only know that others in the room can help us, but to give ourselves a little bit of grace and gratitude for those changes we've had to make. So with that, I'm going to say cheers and congratulations.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so that was what I was going to say at the close of this conference at about 4 o'clock, so we're just going to play that video later. But
what allowed me to do that, and you can grade that A, B, C, it could have been better. But what allowed me to do that is I just knew I was going to say, why are we here? How am I connected? Give you a story, and then say thanks. So it made it easier. Again, it's a recipe. And if you have the recipe, all you need to do is put the ingredients in. It makes it easier.
So speaking of recipes,
yes,
I was particularly drawn to the one called ADD. I know it's not that way. I know it's just add, but
yes,
I was drawn to that, and like squirrel, I was drawn to it. So explain what that one is and how that one works.
Yet another structure. Answering questions is very challenging for people. Some of you learned at some point in your careers the STAR method for responding: situation, task, analysis, results. That's a great structure. If you like it, I don't, but feel free to use it. ADD stands for answer the question, give a detailed example, describe the value. So when somebody asks a question, I answer it as quickly and concisely as I can. I then give a detailed example that reinforces the answer, and then I explain why that's important or relevant. So let's imagine you're interviewing me for the job I have, a teacher of communication at a business school. You might ask the question, why are you qualified? It's a reasonable question. So I might say, I have 25 years of experience teaching strategic communication. I've taught at the undergraduate and graduate level, and I do consulting in the corporate world. What that means is, I can take my material and tailor it to the needs of your students. I answer the question, I give a concrete example, and then I explain why that's important. The concrete example is given because we remember concrete detail better than general information. The relevance piece is critical because we assume people can connect the dots. I think this last week's election showed us maybe people can't connect dots, but the reality is that the very first psychology professor I ever had said something that stuck with me. And what he said was, the funny thing about common sense is it's not so common. So I think dot one, dot two, you can connect those two. That's not always the case. So I land it for you. So I say, so if you hire me, I can do this. So as you answer questions, give a concrete example, people will remember it, and then connect the dots. Not every question is fit for this. If during lunch you come up to me and say, Matt, how are you? I can just say, fine. All right? I don't have to say I'm doing great. You know why? I got 8 hours of sleep, and we're going to have a really good interaction right now. I don't have to force the structure. But it's a tool in your toolkit. So when you're in that moment, you're like, oh, crud, how am I going to answer this question? I'm going to give an answer, I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to explain why it's important. So again, structure helps you get through it.
Structure helps you get through it. And you did mention lunch, which we are going to have.
Yes, good.
And one last thought, which is, this is a networking opportunity. What's the first question folks should ask when they're meeting people? How do they do that? Just an icebreaker thing. Thought.
Okay, so I see the lights flashing,
Yeah.
but small talk is hard. Many people don't like small talk. Now, in a room of marketers, maybe we're a little different, but most people don't like small talk. On my podcast, Think Fast, Talk Smart, I interviewed a woman. Her name is Rachel Greenwald. She's a fascinating person. She's a professor, an academic, and a matchmaker. Go figure. She said something that resonated a lot with me. The goal of small talk is to be interested, not interesting. Interested, not interesting. A lot of us go into small talk thinking, I've got to position myself. I've got to ace the ball over the net. Small talk is hacky sack. It's passing the ball from one person to the next to make sure it doesn't hit the ground. So to answer your question, you ask a question. Ask a question about something that you learned from today. What was in your box when you played that silly game that crazy Mac guy asked us to do? Just ask a question. Make an observation. A very close friend of mine that I have now, I met because we were waiting in line at a buffet. I didn't know anybody. I looked around and everybody around was wearing different shades of blue. It wasn't an outfit or anything. I looked at him, I said, I missed the memo on the blue thing. He looked around and said, yeah. We've become great friends because I simply made an observation. And whenever I travel to the city he lives in, we get together. It doesn't take a lot to get small talk going. You just have to remind yourself it's about being interested, not interesting. And I'll give you 3 words that'll help you get through any small talk. My mother-in-law was a black belt in small talk. Tell me more.
There it is.
Tell me more. And that'll help your conversation move forward.
And by the way, you know, we have a nice matching
Yeah, we do.
thing.
Yeah,
we
look
do.
at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
I thought we were back in
Where'd
COVID
you
days,
get that
elbows.
shirt? I don't know. Because
Anything
I could have
that
worn
I
that.
look good in, my wife bought.
There you
so
go.
I don't
All
know
right.
where it came from.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Abrahams. If you don't subscribe to his podcast, please
Thank
do.
you.